So welcome everybody to another meeting of the Rotary Club of Livermore. Thank you for all being here today. And Marcus, since you're with us here today, would you be willing to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Everybody else, put yourselves on mute.
Would be my pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the technical issues. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Marcus. So, Michael and Stu, song for the day.
Supposed to see myself.
There we go.
We see you, Michael, but you're on mute.
Unmute. I said I'm proud of myself when I hit the right button, right when I didn't hit the right button. Yeah, today was a tough song. It was just like at the club assembly. So I just kind of took the average age of everyone in the room and came up with when I'm 64.
One, two, three, four. When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I've been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? I could be handy mending a fuse when your lights have gone. You could knit a sweater by the fireside. Sunday mornings go for a ride, doing the garden, digging the weeds. Who could ask for more? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Every summer we could rent a cottage in the Isle of Wight if it's not too dear. We shall scrimp and save, grandchildren on your knee, Vera, Chuck, and Dave. Send me a postcard, drop me a line, stating point of view. Indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Duck me an answer, fill in a form, mine forevermore. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Woo!
Great job. Thank you very much. And this may be one of those years where people are 64 really want to be 65. All right. Thought for the day, Ted Michaels.
Okay, there I am. I'm unmuted now. So I have a little story to tell you that I found on the internet some years ago. It's called The Mayonnaise Jar and Two Beers. The professor stood before his philosophy class and had some items in front of him. When the class began, he wordlessly picked up a very large and emptied mayonnaise jar and proceeded to fill it with golf balls. He asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed it was. He then picked up a box of pebbles, poured them in the jar, shook the jar lightly, and the pebbles rolled into the open places where there were no golf balls. He then asked the students if it was full. They agreed again. Professor next picked up a box of sand, poured it into the jar, and of course the sand filled up everything else. He once again asked if it was full, and the students unanimously said yes. He then produced 2 bottles of beer from under the table and poured the entire contents into the jar, filling the empty space between the sand. The students laughed. Now, said the professor as the laughter subsided, I wanted you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The golf balls are important things, your family, your children, your health, your friends, and your favorite passions. And if everything else was lost and only they remained, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter, like your job, your house, and your car, etc. The sand is everything else, the small stuff. So if you put the sand in the jar first, there's no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for life. If you spend your time and energy on the small stuff, you'll never have room for the things that are important to you. Pay attention to things that are critical to your happiness. Spend time with each other, with parents, grandparents, and grandchildren, which is what I'm looking forward to. Take your spouse out to dinner, and another favorite, play 18 holes of golf. There will always be time to clean the house and fix things. Take care of the golf balls first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand. One of the students raised her hand and inquired what the beer represented. The professor smiled and said, I'm glad you asked. The beer just shows you that no matter how full your life may be, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend. So when things in your life seem almost too much to handle, when 24 hours a day are not enough, remember the mayonnaise jar and the 2 beers. Thank you.
Thank you
Nice.
very much, Ted. That's a great story. And there's always time for it to have a beer or a glass of wine. So our meeting front line, Jeff, as always, is our Zoom host. Susan Mail is our Spur reporter this week. Alan's doing our AV. Kathy will be publishing our Spur, and David is monitoring the chat. So introduction of visiting Rotarians and guests. Do we have any visiting Rotarians today? I didn't see any in that. How about any guests today? All right, I'm just looking through the list and I think I know you all and you are all members. So, okay. So a couple photos from my walkabout. The first is one I've showed you before. I think many of you recognize this as Brushy Peak, and this was taken in June when the grass is dry.
It's a nice photo.
Thank you, Alan. The next photo is a view from Brushy Peak that was taken on Sunday. And looking at these two photos together, I'm reminded is there's always a different perspective depending where you are. So that's just another thought for us to keep in mind, and depending on the time of year. All right, Mary Ann. Is Mary Ann still with us?
I think she's on mute.
Okay, I'm here. So we have 14 grant applications, so we're doing really well. And we have some from teachers and some from community organizations. So we're in good shape. We might get some more today, but we do have 14 good ones already.
All right, thank you, Mary Ann. And just remember, if you're sponsoring one, make sure they get it in today.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a call for volunteers. Barbara Hickman has been our Thought for the Day coordinator. She's needing to take a leave of absence for health reasons. So this is a wonderful opportunity for one of you to step in to be the coordinator for that. It's relatively easy, just coordinating the schedule and sending out a weekly reminder. So if you'd like to assume that role while Barbara is out, please contact me and let me know, or you can put it in the chat or raise your hand and tell me right now. Okay, and next week we will have a presentation from the Rotary Children's Fund, and this is about a program that builds cultural bridges through dancing. Welcome back, Steve. And this week we're up to our club assembly. So we're starting our program early. A lot of things that we would normally have during our meeting announcements are incorporated into our club assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And thumbs up if it still looks right. Alan, thumbs up. Okay, good. So one thing about our club is that we're stronger than COVID-19. And we've been able to, we're still meeting and we're still here. And remember back in our last club assembly, and even at the beginning of the year, I shared this quote from Holger Knack, our current RI president. Change has always been a central part of Rotary's mission. And we've learned to change and adapt. Some changes may be here to stay, and some will go back to the way things were. So I also shared what our goals were for the Rotary Foundation. You'll recall that we had a goal of raising $30,000 towards the annual fund, $10,000 to Polio Plus, and having every club member participate as every Rotarian every year with a minimum $25 donation to the Rotary Foundation. So how are we doing? Well, we get a gold star for our annual fund. We've exceeded our goal. We get a gold star for Polio Plus. We've reached our goal. And it's still a work in progress for every Rotarian every year. At this point, 40% of our club members have donated at least $25 to the Rotary Foundation. And then in the next few weeks, you'll be hearing more from Pat McMiniman about our goal to achieve that number. Remember, 45%, 40% in school is failing. I know we can do better than that. So now I'd like to invite Pat McMiniman to actually share some Rotary Foundation recognitions. Pat.
Thank you, President Carolyn and visiting Rotarians and guests. Today we recognize the following 3 members of our club for their generous giving to the Rotary Foundation. Glenn Kubiak first became a Paul Harris Fellow in June 2020 and recently achieved Paul Harris Fellow +1 recognition. Yvonne Hopkins first became a Paul Harris Fellow in June 2003 and recently achieved Paul Harris Fellow +3 recognition. And Linda Tenney first became a Paul Harris Fellow in April 2017 and recently achieved Paul Harris Fellow +4 recognition. So on behalf of our club's board of directors, President Carolyn and I express our deep gratitude and appreciation for the generous and continuing donations these 3 members of our club have given to the Rotary Foundation since they first became a Paul Harris Fellow. Thank you, Glenn, Yvonne, and Linda. And now President Carolyn and I have the honor of recognizing Gaud and Chandrakala Mamula, who recently became level 2 major donors of the Rotary Foundation. And suffice it to say, this is a really big deal. Gaud first became a Paul Harris Fellow 11 years ago in March 2010. And then in February 2017, Gaud and Chandrakala were recognized by our club as level 1 major donors of the Rotary Foundation. Today, we recognize their achievement of becoming level 2 major donors of the Rotary Foundation. And before we give Gaud and Chandrakala an opportunity to share their perspective about what motivates them to so strongly support the Rotary Foundation, we have received the following words of appreciation for Gaud and Chandrakala from the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. So from the Rotary Foundation trustees, let me read this so that everyone hears what the trustees have to say. Today, on behalf of the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, we are honored to express our appreciation to two remarkable individuals who have made substantial contributions toward improving communities, both locally and throughout the world. So it gives our club great pleasure to announce that Gaud and Chandra Kala are District 5170's newest Level 2 major donors of the Rotary Foundation. In appreciation for their investment in the future of humanity, the trustees of the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International expressed their gratitude by presenting Gaud and Chandra Kala with a crystal medallion depicting doves bearing olive branches, a universal symbol of peace. So please join us in a virtual round of applause, recognizing Gaud and Chandra Kala. They've certainly made a substantial difference in the lives of many people, both near and far. So Carolyn and I have asked Gaud and Chandra Kala to take a few minutes to share their perspectives about what has inspired them to support the Rotary Foundation. So we'll now give the Zoom screen over to Gaud and Chandra Kala.
Thank you. Thank you, President Carolyn and Patrick McMahon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For taking time to visit us last Thursday and present the award personally to both of us. Sorry, my wife couldn't be here right now. She had to do something else. I'd like to take a few minutes to express our thoughts. First, we are very happy to be able to make the contribution to the Rotary Foundation, and we are proud of it. It is our way of paying back for all the opportunities we had in the past and benefited from them to be who we are today. It is our expression of gratitude. I may get a little emotional, but bear with me. We are very grateful for many opportunities we had and received advice and support of many people I didn't even know before, since we came to this country 55 years ago. Literally, I had no money after completing my master's degree in engineering at KSU, and we had no family. I was literally alone and some friends. We were able to work through many challenges and build our life and a successful career. We are blessed to have our daughter and son live nearby with their families in Pleasanton and Livermore. And they gave us 5 wonderful grandchildren. What more can we ask for? So our philosophy is that donating to the Rotary Foundation is the best way to help the needs of humanity around the world. There is no better way to help globally, in my opinion, than donating through Rotary to have the greatest impact. It is because over 1 million Rotarians like us from different walks of life across the globe are working hard, volunteering to help meet the needs of children, women, education, disease prevention, drinking water, sanitation, economic development, to name a few. We all see the needs of our local community clearly, but the needs across the globe are orders of magnitude bigger. We traveled over 45 countries and have seen how hard the life is to many. I believe that all of us can find a way to help by recognizing the needs, developing a desire to help, and being mindful of the gratitude for what we have. It is especially so when we think of how a little bit of help can make a big difference globally without much impact on our own life. Let's all be global citizens and help in having positive impact on fellow citizens. Thank you for giving me a chance to share my thoughts.
You're very welcome, Gal. Thank you to both you and Kala for your very generous spirit, both globally and locally. And hearing more of your story, I was just honored that you shared that and touched by that you live your life from a point of gratitude and pay it forward and pay it back. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and part of giving to the Rotary Foundation is what allows us to receive funds to award global grants. And as you know, we collectively, in collaboration with the other Rotary clubs in Area 4, awarded almost $97,000 in grants this year that actually stayed in this part of the globe in our local community. So today, Jeff Youngsma is going to share a little bit about our global grant in action. So Jeff.
God, that was an awful picture. Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to be able to do this. And a big shout out to Pat Coyle, who really, the reason Livermore can be so prominent is because of all the behind the scenes work that Pat has done. So Pat, thanks for letting me be part of this. So we'll go to the next slide here. And our reach from Area 4 in order to do the COVID-19 global grant, which then got, and it was HEV sponsored, got kicked back to us. We needed to make contact with the Alameda County Health Consortium. And out of all the agencies, and I believe that there's about 6 or 7 agencies that are tied with that, the ones who actually responded back to us that were in our Area 4 were Access Health Services, which we gave a presentation on, Asian Health Services, which I think we've been able to follow up with that, and then Eden Hospital. And I'll get into why Eden Hospital ended up falling into that for a bit. Their grant amount that they were asking for was for $15,000. This Zoom meeting was attended by, and some of these names you're going to recognize and many you don't, but it was definitely very prevalent. We had Dr. Chris Curry, and she is the head of respiratory and pulmonary care at Eden Hospital. Dr. Au, who's one of the leading respiratory, hang on, I got somebody in here. One of our leading respiratory doctors who has been having to deal directly with COVID-19. Dr. Lin, who is their COVID-19, for lack of a better thing, benevolent overlord of making sure that they apply. Obviously, we had Jill Durig, and I just realized I spelled her name incorrectly. Gary Howard from the president of the Castro Valley Rotary Club, Pat Coyle, and a smattering of others, which included our Madam President Carolyn, Pat McCandless, and myself, and just quite a few other viewers. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, what Eden Hospitals asked is unlike our other clinics, which were how can we treat patients at home and still be able to monitor. Anybody who was walking into Eden Hospital is obviously beyond that. In order to take care of their the respiratory emergencies that happen with COVID-19, and they happen at a rather fast pace. Anywhere within 1 to 3 hours, a patient can go from being just sitting in the ER, being okay with mild difficulty breathing, to having to be on one of these invasive machines. So what they were able to do is quickly look back at neonatal practices and say, what is going to work best on that? So initially they were using CPAP, APAP, and BiPAP. And what that really kind of stands for is continuous positive air pressure, which is what I've used in the pre-hospital setting on numerous patients. APAP, which is automatically pressurized air pressure. And that's if you are intubated and you are on a ventilator, and every time between 8 to can be 12 to 16 times a minute. It's just going to force air into your system. And then the BiPAP, which has gained popularity for those with sleep apnea and snorers who don't necessarily do very well. Like I said, they're based out of the neonatal practices. And what would happen is if these patients didn't tolerate this very well, they would end up needing to be intubated, which is a tube that goes down your windpipe, or what we call the trachea, just past the vocal cords. You're hooked up to a ventilator. You're usually paralyzed or unconscious for this to happen, and you need to remain so. And then you're in strict isolation, which means it's one-on-one care. So it puts quite a drain on the system. The complications with all of these is because they are invasive, they mean just that. The complications from that happening from either just wearing the mask in that very top picture to that bottom picture, which is a full face CPAP. You can see that mask, it's kind of like having a little alien on your face the whole time. It's known to dry its eyes because it usually can't be that humidified. It makes eating and drinking difficult, and be able to order to eat and drink. You now have to take that oxygen off, and then therefore you're not getting that in your system. Just simple things as going to the bathroom, which then means usually a Foley will have to be installed, both urinary and for defecation, and G tubes for feeding. If you have to be intubated, then you're usually paralyzed. To make this happen, and all those same things have to happen to you. And the recovery can be anywhere from 5 days with the CPAP or the BiPAP up to 10 days if you ended up having to be intubated. I didn't have any really good shareable pictures of intubation. So these were a lot of complications that were kind of, and this was our initial treatment to take care of these patients. So then Eden Hospital's ask was this. Next slide, please. It's called the Vapotherm non-invasive ventilator. And this was the best picture that I could find of what this machine was. It's small, it's portable, it can still deliver humidified oxygen at 110%. It can give up to 60 liters per minute with what we call end-tidal CO2 readings. And what that end-tidal CO2 really does is it tells us the quality of the gas exchange. So not only is there pulse oximetry, which is just saying how much oxygen you're getting in your system, it's how well is that oxygen and that carbon dioxide mixing and expelling. And it really would tell us, at least in a pre-hospital setting and in the emergency room setting, just how effective our oxygen therapy was. But what actually really helped out by putting individuals on this machine was there was an increase automatically in patient comfort. You don't have this thing on your face and stuff blowing in your eyes. You don't have to have a catheter inserted. You can eat your meals. You were just generally a lot more comfortable. And because they were comfortable, the respirations would decrease to a normal level, and they would, they just basically, anecdotally, they didn't have anything empirical yet, but anecdotally, the patients seemed to prefer it more and were discharged sooner from the hospital. Some of the decreases were in the complications. And I'll talk about the last one here in a little bit, but they found that the recovery time of patients that were on this machine was a lot less. They could get them on it sooner. They recovered faster. They had a faster discharge time, which means they could turn the bed over for the next time, for the next patient. Because they're not in the hospital as long, there's less of a cost. It doesn't have to be one-on-one care. With not staying at the hospital as long, that charge, the insurance companies are less, and or what the hospital has to absorb. And a big problem is that with anything that's invasive, your body suddenly decides it doesn't need to use it anymore. And so you get atrophy. If you don't lift any weights, your muscles can atrophy. If you're not breathing on your own and a machine is doing it for your lungs, your rib cage, your diaphragm, they kind of just sort of stop working. They're just going to let the machine do everything. And that recovery time to get that all working again takes a lot longer. With this, it didn't happen because your lungs still had to do all the work. All it did was supply a lot of humidified oxygen in a comfortable way. Because of our grant, our $15,000, Eden Hospital was able to purchase 2 of these items. They generally go for around 9 to 10 grand today. But they had some monies for another one. They were able to get 4 of those. or they were able to purchase 2, which gave them a total of 4. And then they were able to borrow another 4 from hospitals that weren't using it, part of the Sutter system. And then augmenting with their CPAP and their BiPAP, their benefit was they were able to create 16 more rooms that could be respiratory ICUs. And that became exceptionally important here in a little bit. And at the last one, it's a very portable machine. It's just like having an IV pole. You can push it around anywhere you go, to the bathroom, to, you know, just get some walking around or whatever it takes. It's easy to get out of bed. Next slide, please. And so, and then that's the machine working with somebody, and he just gets to wear that nasal cannula that has an end-tidal CO2 monitor on it, which is why it's a little bit more thick, very much more comfortable, way less invasive. He can sit there and just eat his meal, have his Jell-O, enjoy his eggs, visit with anybody, and he doesn't really have to work that too hard. So Eden Hospital, the benefits and the challenges of Eden Hospital and why we felt that they were worthy of this grant was Eden Hospital is 1 out of the 2 trauma centers here in Alameda County. There actually is a 3rd, and that's Children's Beniot, but they only accept pediatric patients, so they don't take adults. It is a stroke center. At one time, it used to be one of the top burn centers, but they kind of gave that up so they could be a better stroke center. They have a total of 130 beds. 20 of these have been identified as an ICU. What they don't include in their bed count is a labor and delivery bed and pediatrics, because they can't really be converted at all to anything ICU. So it only gives them 110 beds to be able to keep anybody overnight. And by being able to get all of these machines, they were actually able to increase that by an additional 16 ICU beds, which was pretty prevalent here when COVID was at its rampage. Since COVID-19, they have lost over $300 million in elective revenue, which means those costs are either the hospital itself has to absorb, usually through their capital improvement budgets, or you know, they're just going to have to figure out a different way to get that money. So even a big hospital such as Eden Hospital, part of the Sutter system, is suffering loss. And it serves a very large underrepresented population. It's in considered in an unincorporated area of Alameda County, so therefore there's not any city coffers that can or can't be used for it. Their only people that they have to fight for them is their board of directors, and then 1 representative on the board of supervisors for Alameda County. So with our $15,000, we were basically able to help them create additional ICUs, which at one time we were hurting drastically for. That's the next slide. That ends my presentation. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask Pat, or you could send them to me in the chat, especially if they're about the global grant itself. If it's about this particular piece of equipment, I will do my best to answer. And thank you for the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff, for that presentation. I will say it's been an honor to be able to participate in the meetings that Pat schedules with the grant recipients to see how our dollars are being put into use and seeing our global grant in action. So great job with that overview today, Jeff, for what an impact that this has made at Eden Hospital, which is one of the trauma hospitals. So what else can we do? We are also a people of action. So as Jeff mentioned, a big chunk of our grant funding went to Access Community Health, and that was part to buy at-home blood pressure monitoring equipment. And now that equipment's arrived and it needs to be delivered. So there will be a service opportunity for our club members along with our fellow Rotarians in Area 4 to help deliver these to Access clients throughout the Tri-Valley. And so you'll hear more information from Joel when that comes up. That'll save, you know, anywhere from $9 to $10 a unit for Access to being able to having to mail those to people. So just like we did with the Kinza thermometers, this will be a great opportunity for us to be people of action. You'll also hear more about there may be some upcoming volunteer opportunities. There's lots of discussion about the vaccine rollout to volunteer for that. I am going to put Pat Coyle on the spot and ask him if he could put into the chat 2 links to email for volunteer opportunities right now to help with vaccination rollout. I was on a call this morning, or a meeting with the Livermore Chamber of Commerce, where Dr. Kelly Bowers was talking about school reopening. And as part of that presentation, she was also talking about the mobile vaccination pod that will be coming to Livermore, and fingers crossed, a pod at the Robert Livermore Community Center. So I reached out to Kelly to ask if there would be a need for volunteers there as well, so that we can help making sure that the most vulnerable in our community are getting vaccinated. So there'll be also, besides putting our dollars to work, there'll be time to put our feet and hands to work as well. So next, I'd like to invite Kathy Coyle to give us an update on the Quantichem Burn Children's Foundation. As you know, our club always supports a patient, and I'll let Kathy take it over from here. So let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate you giving me the time today. I want to bring your attention to this picture. This is from the 1998 Rotary magazine printed by the Independent. 1998 was the year that Quantichem Burn Children Foundation was formed. So that's a long time ago. But the thing about this is that the Independent used to do a magazine every couple of years that was only about Rotary in the Tri-Valley. So I happen to have 3 copies of the magazine, and this was one of the ones I had. So you can see here that this goes a long way back. Jorge, if you've seen Jorge Rojas lately, he looks very much the same. He still has the beautiful smile. And the thing I want you to notice, that everybody in that photo is smiling. So since I joined Burn Children Foundation, we have 4 members of District 5170 actually on the board of directors. Our newest board member is Bob Cowan, and he is now the treasurer for the foundation. And so I'm really pleased that he stepped up and said he would do that job. And we still have Carolyn Schutz, who is past district governor of for our district. And she was treasurer for many years. And then Bo Carvaccio from the Dublin Club, and myself. And I want to bring up that our club has been involved in this organization since 1998 in a big way. And in case you don't know what Quantichem means, in English, it's all for the burned child. And in Spanish, it is Corporación Todo Ayuda Niños Quemado. So it means the same thing, but it's a lot more syllables. So I wanted to show you, after 40 years, that we have rehabilitated 135,000 young burned victims. That's total rehabilitation. Quantichem doesn't treat acute patients. They only do rehabilitation. And to completely rehabilitate a child who's burned when they're 3 would take at least 15 years. Because children, when they're burned very young, at the scar tissues are usually very massive and very hard to treat. And children grow and scar tissues don't grow. So you can see on the slide a lot of data there. Some has to do with international training, so that because they realized if they could train some people in other countries to do the rehabilitation there, that would reduce the travel for the families and the children. They still come to Santiago at least once a year, the children that are in their care. So I'm happy to answer a lot of questions, but I want to take any more of Carolyn than I need to. I want to go to the next slide, and I'll point something out here about some R&D that we're doing. And this is very, very exciting. But I want to point out that this little boy on the right, it looks like he's wearing a red sweater. And that's not a sweater. that is compression garments that probably go right up to his neck and down his chest and back. It would be like a sweater, but it's a compression garment. He probably has scars all over his arms, his chest, and his back. And the color of the compression garment indicates the strength of the material that they're using. But he looks pretty happy to me. And that's one of the things about Quantichem, is that the children who go there are not typically afraid because of what the place looks like and how the staff behave. I'm going to talk about the lasers in a minute, but telemedicine is one of the major breakthroughs that was as a result of cooperation with UC Davis Medical Center, so that they now do video visits and diagnostics through video conferencing, and also they can guide technicians through treatments remotely. So that's made a huge difference again to the cost and time that it takes to bring families to the big facilities in Chile, that they don't have to do that as often. And then they can use their remote centers for more treatments. This little girl up in the right-hand corner, I had another picture of her getting all of her compression garments on, but you can see how happy she is. I want to bring out again what the place looks like, all the soft colors, and really welcoming and friendly, so the children are not afraid. So this is what I really want to talk to you about today. This, I think, Alan thought it looked like something out of a dentist's office. It's kind of like that. It is a laser that they will be using to treat the scars. And the scar tissue doesn't grow, and it gets very hard, as you know. And if you've seen someone who's severely burned, there's contortions, there's things contract. They have dips in their skin, ridges in their skin, and what they're believing and it's showing that with microperforations of these scar tissues, that it softens and thins the scar so that it favors generation of healthy tissue around it and underneath it. And that, to me, is going to make a huge difference, especially when you're treating scars on the neck and face. I'm going to show you some pictures with children with severe scarring in a minute. And so I am extremely excited about this. There is a global grant that's being pursued by some clubs in Southern California, and Quantichem has put me in touch with them. It's for a $220,000 grant, or the cost of the whole project, to get this equipment into the facilities in Chile. I don't have the exact numbers on what one of these would cost, but I think, or how many of them they're going to get. But for me, it is just revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary. So I'm pleased to say that the board of our club board was very supportive of this. And in addition to sponsoring a child, which we have done, that they're going to give a cash contribution towards that as well. So it may be either strictly cash, or hopefully it'll be DDF, because that goes a lot further, as we know. So I hope to keep you up to date on the progress of that and any other news that I get on the laser treatments. So now I'm going to show you, I hope she will play, but this little girl is Sophia, and this is one of their prevention programs. And she is going to tell you 3 things that you can do to prevent your child being burned like her, which was a boiling water accident in the kitchen.
Hola, me llamo Sofía y te voy a dar 3 consejos para que tu hijo no se queme con agua hirviendo. 1. Nunca dejes la cocina sola si hay niños cerca. 2. Elige una zona para tus hijos donde los puedas ver y lejos de la olla hirviendo. Y 3. Siempre pon la olla en los quemadores de atrás.
So in other words, she said, never leave a child alone in the kitchen, number 1. Number 2, if they are in the kitchen, put them in a safe area and where you can always see what they're doing. And number 3, if you're cooking on your stove and there's something, boiling water or some liquid at the front, put it at the back. So those are 3 things that you can do, that you do. I'm very impressed with that little girl. And there are several of these you can see on the internet, on their YouTube channel. So I wanted to show you this. I know I'm probably using up my time, Carolyn. This is Paola, and Paola has just graduated. She graduated a year ago on her own. And what that means is that she says, I don't want to be a sponsored child anymore. I want to move on with my life. But you can see from her where she was when she was a little girl, how badly burned her face was and what she looks like now. And that is what Quantichem does. It supports the whole child. She's a very happy young woman. People love her. She's very enthusiastic and hopeful about her life. And that's what makes me so proud to be part of this organization. And this is Martine, and he's the child that we support. And you can see him here when he was a toddler, how badly burned he was. This is him at about 8 years old, and here he is about 13, and now he's 15, and I don't have a picture of him. But this is the transformation and care that he received, and he will continue to receive until he's 18. So the last slide is how you can help. You already know how you can help. Thank you, Carolyn, for giving me the time today. I appreciate giving you an update on this. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I really appreciate the support of all the club members who have donated over the years and continue to support us. So thanks very much.
All right, you're very welcome, Kathy. Thank you very much for that update. That's a very wonderful update and a reminder of what we are doing throughout the world with our impact and our dollars. And so up next, I'd like to invite Ted Michaels.
Hello, Caroline. Caroline.
Yes, Christian. Yes.
Can we ask Kathy a very quick question? Is it possible?
Okay, if it's a quick question, yes.
Yes, Kathy, do you have any idea, the kind of impact that these kids, are trying to get into the workforce, for instance, so what kind of impact is that having on their lives? I was just going through some resumes, trying to do some hiring. There are a lot of people that post their pictures on their resume. What kind of impact is it having on these kids, and what are they doing about it? Any kind of counseling?
They do long-term counseling for these children right from the beginning. They treat the whole family too, because families feel guilty about this happening to their child. So they always try to have the children feel safe and confident. And that's one of the things in the letters that you will see from the children as they get older, that they're confident about going out on their own. And people are always going to notice their scars, but their scars are only skin deep. And that's how Quantichem, I think, has the strongest impact on these children, is that they are a real person inside. Does that help you?
Thank you very much, Kathy. And Christian, I'm going to ask you to, Kathy, you'll stay on at the end of the meeting, and we can add some more follow-up questions.
I want to donate $250. I want to donate $250 to it.
All right, $250. All right. Kathy will put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
About where to donate. Thank you very much, Christian. And Ted, you're up next to recognize club members who are donating to support our work locally through the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. Ted.
Thank you, President Carolyn. Let's see if you put up the next slide, I think. Yes, on behalf of the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore, I want to thank the people listed below for their generous contribution of over $1,000 in 2020. The contributions from all of you help the foundation to work towards its goal of satisfying our vision to strive to sustainably improve the quality of life in the Livermore Valley for residents, as with an added focus on youth. In a normal year, I'd be standing in front of the club and giving all of you a certificate, but I can't do that this year. Therefore, with the help of RCoL, I was able to get the certificate done electronically. And shortly after the meeting, I'll be sending a certificate out to each of you in appreciation for what you've done. The donations that came in went to a variety of places, including the unrestricted funds, which are for the foundation itself, plus the restricted funds, and many of them went to the restricted fund that the club has set up for where we all donated money for the lunch money fund. So I want to thank all of you so much. I won't take time to read all the names, but once again, thank you for your donations. It's much appreciated, and the generosity is very welcome. Thank you very much.
And I echo Ted's thanks to all of you who very generously donated to the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. And many of you did that because through our restricted lunch money fund. So we asked you to donate your lunch money since we're still meeting on Zoom, and you gave. So these club members, our club members, have generously donated over $31,000 to support our local community through our funds held at the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore. And so how will those funds be used, and how is our lunch money being put into action? How is our generosity being put into action? And it's being put into action through our club grants. I hope you have been as inspired as I have through our first 2 rounds of club grants when we hear the recipients. And I'm grateful for our collaboration with the LVEF, the Livermore Valley Education Foundation, because we've been able to give a lot of funds this year into the school, but also a lot of other worthwhile organizations that are making this a stronger community right now with so many people in need. We're putting our money in action through our contribution to RFL's remote learning technology for Livermore students. And as I shared earlier at the beginning of the meeting, Livermore schools, if you haven't heard, are reopening, and they will be starting March 22nd, TK through 12th grade. So at all grade levels in the district. And part of what they'll need is no more shared devices, even when they're back in the classrooms and at home. So we're really helping to support that effort. And we know we still have money left. So the board will be identifying other community needs. And we've, as you heard today, spent a lot of our money, or donated a lot of our money to support medical efforts in our COVID response. But we know that there are more needs still in our community, some that may not be healthcare related, some that may be food insecurity related. So we will be continuing to do that. And if you have suggestions and other proposals, please send that to me or any other the other board members. The intent is not to collect money for the sake of collecting money. It's for getting it back out into the community so that it can be put to work and we can see our funds in action. And so I'd like to thank Steve Neff our most recent, as of today, contributor to our Lunch Money Fund. Thank you, Steve. And that was in honor of his daughter, Jessica, getting accepted to a very prestigious and challenging high school where she'll be doing college level work in addition to her high school level work. So he went, and Steve, did you donate online? Yep, you donated online. Yeah, and that was easy to do. You can do that directly from our club website. So I'll ask somebody to put that link again. I know Pat did earlier in the chat. So if there is still an opportunity for you to contribute to this restricted fund, because that's going to allow us to put money back and support our local community. So thank you very much, Steve, for that generous donation. So you may recall this from our last meeting and our last club assembly. We're on Zoom. We're still here, and we were saying, and we've said, even today, you're on mute. Please mute yourself. Please stop sharing your screen. Or should I eat my lunch while I'm on camera? Recall that. But we've been doing this for almost a year, for almost 12 months. And we've pivoted and we've survived. It's been a long time, but we should celebrate that we've survived a year of Zoom. But also at the time that we're celebrating, let's also take time to reflect, because it's been a year since this pandemic started. And in that past year, over 500,000 of our fellow Americans have lost their lives. So I'm not discounting that fact as we celebrate, that we also need to be keep that in mind. But vaccination rollout is happening. It seems like each meeting now, more and more of you are raising your hand to indicate that you've been able to be vaccinated and you've had one or two vaccines. And we're being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Soon, Alameda County, all indications are indicating that even next week, as early as next week, we might be moving into the red tier. So that light's at the end of the tunnel, but probably reaching the light maybe months away instead of weeks away, but it's still there. We can be optimistic. So we're still going to celebrate via Zoom. We're still meeting via Zoom. For our club meetings, we need to still follow the guidelines from the county about when it's safe for us to gather in person. And just because our demographics of our age group of our club may be that 80% of you are vaccinated by the end of the month, there's a lot of people in our community who are not, so we may not be able to find a place that will allow us to meet in person, but we can still have success and celebrate, and we can still have fun on Zoom. So we're celebrating. As Joel announced last week, we are going to have a virtual social and wine tasting on March 12th. That's kind of the, mid-March, early March, this is kind of when this all started. It'll be at 6:30 p.m. We'll gather on Zoom. The details are you have to pre-order your wine tasting kits, and we're doing that through Big White House and John Evans Cellars. As you know, John Evan Marion III is the owner and winemaker and a member of our club, also is the assistant winemaker, Jessica Carroll, and they're putting together a virtual tasting and a tour for us. So you can go online onto their website to purchase the kit directly for us. And if you want to also have a little cheese box or a charcuterie box from Charming Fig, you can purchase that as well. You must purchase, the deadline for purchasing the wine is the day of the event, March 12th. They need advance 2 days notice for cheese boxes. So the deadline for that is March 10th. And then you can pick up your box out at Big White House. It's a good reason to get out of the house and see the beautiful setting of their winery on Greenville Road. And that'll be on Friday the 12th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Joel Swanson has offered and volunteered to deliver tasting kits to people if you let him know and send him an email by March 10th. Don't expect him to reply to your email before then, however, because I think he is out sailing and probably not checking emails. So that will be our virtual celebration together. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. We are at 12:30, so this is the end of our club assembly. I know some of you may have questions, or if you have any further questions for Kathy or for me, I welcome those questions and invite you to stay on. Also, if you would like help seeing how to navigate the Big White House website to place your orders, I'd be happy to share my screen and help you work through that. So that concludes another meeting for the Rotary Club of Livermore, and I express my gratitude for all of you as club members for your generosity with your time and your talent.